Angelica had already come up with a plan. If Nedge was afraid of eating, then instead of forcing food in front of her, she would let Nedge become a part of making it herself. Holding up a small ball of dough, Angelica smiled confidently. This is going to be Nedge's job. The chefs stared at her in complete confusion. None of them had any idea what she was talking about. Just then, Lara arrived with Nedge. The little girl looked nervous at first, but the moment she spotted Angelica, her face lit up. "Mother!" Angelica immediately knelt down to meet her at eye level and smiled warmly. "Thank you for coming. I want us to make dinner together." Nedge blinked in surprise. "Dinner?" Angelica nodded. "When you make food yourself, it feels different. You know exactly what goes into it, so it doesn't feel as scary." Those words made Nedge quietly lower her eyes. "So? It won't be scary?" Hearing that was enough for Angelica to realize she had guessed correctly. The fear wasn't about the dining room or the people around her. It was the food itself. Gently placing a hand on Nedge's shoulder, Angelica smiled again. "That's right. So, let's make it together and then we'll eat it together too." After a brief silence, Nedge finally gave a tiny nod. "Okay." The first step had finally been taken. After washing her hands, Nedge proudly held them up for inspection, and Angelica tied a tiny white apron around her waist before happily announcing, "All right. Today we're making gyoza." The entire kitchen fell silent. Gyoza? Even the chefs looked completely confused. What is gyoza? Only then did Angelica remember that this wasn't her old world. Of course nobody here knew what dumplings were. Trying to save herself, she awkwardly cleared her throat. "Haven't you ever heard of the legendary chef Chica?" The kitchen remained silent. Angelica confidently continued making up the story anyway. "He created hundreds, no, thousands of amazing recipes." The chefs immediately began whispering among themselves, but none of them had ever heard such a name. Watching them exchange puzzled looks, Angelica felt her face heating up. "Even I haven't heard of him. I really could have come up with a better excuse than that." Mentally slapping herself back to reality, she focused on the task instead. "All right, Nedge. Watch carefully." She placed a spoonful of filling onto the dough, folded it neatly, then gently pinched the edges together. Like this. Then fold it. And seal it. Within seconds, a perfectly shaped gyoza rested in her palm. "Even after all this time? My hands still remember." Nedge's eyes sparkled. "Cute." She leaned closer, completely fascinated. "It has little frills. And it's fluffy." Angelica blinked. "Cute? Gyoza?" That certainly wasn't the reaction she had expected. Still, if she's interested, that's already a good sign. Filled with excitement, Nedge quickly reached for another wrapper. "I want to make one too." Angelica happily handed it to her. Of course. To make things easier, she had already prepared several child-friendly fillings. There was creamy potato for a soft, comforting flavor, and sweet apple cinnamon for something closer to dessert. As she watched Nedge eagerly get ready to try, Angelica couldn't help feeling nervous. "I just hope at least one of these becomes something she'll truly enjoy eating." Angelica stood beside Nedge, quietly watching as the little girl concentrated with all her might. A few moments later, Nedge proudly lifted her finished dumpling into the air. "It's done. Mother, look." Angelica's eyes widened. "Wow. That's amazing, Nedge." She gently held Nedge's tiny hands while admiring the dumpling. She wasn't exaggerating at all. For someone making gyoza for the very first time, the folds were incredibly neat and evenly shaped. She's seriously this good on her first try? The shape is beautiful. A warm smile naturally spread across Angelica's face. Not only is she adorable, she's incredibly talented too. Even Lara couldn't hide her excitement. "You're so skillful, Nej-sama." Seeing how interested she looked, Angelica smiled. "Lara, would you like to help too?" Lara's eyes sparkled immediately. "I can." Before long, all three of them were happily making gyoza together. Even the chefs who had been watching from the side slowly stepped closer. "This is quite an interesting dish. It's surprisingly inspiring." Rows of neatly folded dumplings soon covered the wooden trays, leaving even the experienced chefs genuinely impressed. Once everything was ready, Angelica carefully placed the dumplings into the hot pan. A loud sizzle echoed through the kitchen as the bottoms turned beautifully golden before she added a little liquid to steam them. The rich aroma quickly filled the entire room. "It smells good." Nej quietly sniffed the air, her eyes following the pan. A few moments later, Angelica proudly placed the finished gyoza onto a plate. Since she couldn't recreate soy sauce and vinegar in this world, she had prepared a tomato-based dipping sauce instead. She gently set the plate in front of Nej. "Here you go." The little girl stared silently at the food. Even after all that excitement, she still couldn't bring herself to pick up her fork. Angelica noticed the hesitation immediately. "You don't have to force yourself. If you can't eat today, we'll simply make it together again another time." There wasn't even a hint of pressure in her voice. After a long silence, Nej slowly reached for her fork. She carefully cut off a tiny piece, raised it to her lips, and took the smallest bite. The entire kitchen unconsciously held its breath. Nej quietly chewed. Then, her eyes suddenly lit up. Delicious. A bright smile bloomed across her face as she happily took another bite without anyone asking her to. For a second, both Angelica and Lara completely froze. She actually ate it. She really ate it. Joy exploded inside Angelica's heart as she fought back tears. The chefs were just as stunned. Nej-sama ate on her own? Maybe she'll finally be able to eat properly from now on. Angelica quickly shook her head. "Wait. That's probably not the real reason she..." Before she could finish, a deep, calm voice echoed through the kitchen. "It's rather noisy. What's happening here?" The lively atmosphere disappeared in an instant. Every chef stiffened. Heavy footsteps slowly approached the doorway. Step. Step. Everyone instinctively turned toward the entrance. Standing there was Count Shira himself. Angelica's body tensed the moment their eyes met. The moment Count Shira appeared at the kitchen entrance, Angelica felt the entire atmosphere freeze. His sharp red eyes swept across the room, making everyone instinctively lower their heads. Husband. Why is everyone this terrified of him? Then another thought hit her. Wait. Was I not supposed to be in the kitchen? Seeing the nervous chefs and even Lara trembling behind her only made her imagination run even wilder. Before Angelica could say anything, Nej looked up from her plate. "Ah. Father." Shira silently walked toward the table. His unreadable gaze settled on the unfamiliar dish in front of Nej. Angelica swallowed nervously. He's definitely angry. Stopping beside his daughter, he calmly asked. Nej. Yes? What are you eating? Nej looked down at her plate. Gyoza. Shira frowned slightly before turning toward Lara. Lara. What is gyoza? Caught completely off guard, Lara forced an awkward smile. It's a dish created by a legendary chef. Shira accepted the explanation without much reaction before asking another question. Who made it? Without thinking twice, Nej happily pointed toward Angelica. Mother and Nej made it together. The entire kitchen instantly went silent. The chefs froze. Lara's face turned pale. Meanwhile, Angelica could only force an awkward smile. She's wonderfully honest. But this was the one moment I wanted her to keep quiet. After a brief silence, Shira turned toward Angelica. Angelica? Yes? I'd like to speak with you. Please come to my office. Yes. The two quietly left the kitchen and walked through the long, silent corridors of the mansion. Every echoing footstep only made Angelica more nervous. At this rate, making gyoza with Nej is going to become my first and last happy memory here. By the time they reached his office, she had already imagined every possible worst-case scenario. Shira opened the door. Come in. Angelica quietly followed him inside. After taking his seat behind the desk, Shira remained silent for a moment before speaking in a surprisingly calm voice. It's been over a year since I last saw Nej enjoy a meal like that. Angelica blinked. Oh. Really? He slowly looked up at her. How did you manage to open that child's heart? There was no accusation in his voice. Only genuine curiosity. Even the royal palace chefs couldn't prepare anything she'd willingly eat. Angelica smiled modestly. I didn't do anything special. I simply asked Nej to help me cook. I thought, if she knew exactly what went into the food, she might feel safe enough to eat it. Silence filled the room. Then Shira's expression suddenly grew serious. Who told you about Joanna? Angelica stiffened. And no one. I only heard that Nej was afraid of food. And Lara happened to mention the name Joanna. After a brief pause, she quietly added. So? I wondered if someone might have mixed something into Nej's food before. For the first time since they had met, the emotion on Shira's face visibly changed. His eyes widened in surprise. A faint smile slowly appeared on his lips. You're quite perceptive. Angelica's expression gradually turned serious as an old memory surfaced in her mind. She had once gone through something very similar herself. In her previous life, when her parents arranged a meeting with a potential marriage partner, they met at a cafe. While Angelica was away from the table, the man secretly slipped a sleeping pill into her orange juice. Completely unaware, she drank it when she returned. Not long after, he tried to drag her to a hotel. Fortunately, a passerby noticed what was happening and came to her rescue before anything worse could happen. However, the words her parents said after arriving at the hospital hurt her even more than the incident itself. Why did you reject him? Back in the present, Count Shira leaned forward, his eyes burning with anger. Who was it? Angelica blinked in surprise. Yes? His expression grew even colder. Who did it? Did you report him to the military police? Angelica could only smile awkwardly. Inside she panicked. Why is he asking so many details? Trying to avoid the subject, she quickly waved her hands. It didn't become a big issue, so please don't worry about it. After calming herself, Angelica connected everything she had heard so far. But from what you've told me, it seems Nej was poisoned a year ago. It's a miracle she survived. She hesitated before asking the question weighing on her mind. Was the culprit Joanna? A heavy silence filled the room before Count Shira answered. Yes. She was my ex-wife. And Nej's mother. Angelica's eyes widened in shock. What? She couldn't believe what she had just heard. She tried to harm her own child? I can't believe it. Shira slowly shook his head. No. Her target was me. Joanna was having an affair with a lower noble. She wanted to kill me and seize control of the Knightley family. He continued with a painful expression. She conspired with the servants to poison some snacks. His voice became noticeably heavier. Nej happened to be there that day. She asked for the snacks. And without knowing they were poisoned, I gave them to her myself. The guilt in his voice was impossible to hide. Angelica quietly asked. What happened to Joanna after that? Joanna left behind a suicide note and took her own life. She truly loved her daughter. After a brief pause, he added, because of the poison's aftereffects, Nedge lost all memories of her mother. Everything finally made sense to Angelica. So that's why she doesn't remember her mother. She lowered her gaze. And that's why the chefs didn't want me cooking in the kitchen. Shira continued explaining. After that incident, Nedge stopped eating. Her body unconsciously rejects food. I hired countless chefs, but nothing worked. Angelica thought back to everything she had heard about him. So that's why you kept changing chefs for Nedge's sake. Then another realization struck her. Wait a minute. Everyone calls you a picky eater and a womanizer. People spread all kinds of rumors about you. Shira remained completely unfazed. They're simply jealous that I became a marquis at such a young age. Let them say whatever they want. Angelica stared at him in amazement. His mental strength is unbelievable. Then Shira looked directly into her eyes. But I think I understand their feelings a little now. His usually cold expression softened. Right now, I'm jealous of you, Angelica. Angelica froze on the spot. Huh? Inside her head, she completely lost it. I haven't even done anything. Count Shira looked at Angelica with a serious expression. Right now, I'm jealous of you, Angelica. Angelica immediately lowered her gaze, completely flustered. I haven't done anything. Shira let out a tired sigh and covered part of his face with one hand. What are you talking about? After a brief silence, he quietly continued. Nej. He looked down for a moment before admitting the truth. Dot likes you more than me. Angelica's mind went completely blank. Huh? Shira turned toward the window, his voice carrying a trace of sadness. She's afraid of me. She rarely smiles at me. Angelica couldn't help pointing out the obvious. Isn't that because you hardly communicate with her? She continued without hesitation. Do you ever praise her or play with her? Not just scold her? Shira froze. The realization slowly sank in. Angelica looked at him with a dry smile. Probably not. She gently explained. Nedge doesn't know how to interact with you either, Shira-sama. When I asked whether she disliked you, she shook her head. With that, Angelica slowly stepped toward the door. I'll excuse myself now. Lara and the others are probably worried, Shira-sama. Just as she reached the exit. Wait. She immediately stopped and nervously looked back. Is there something else? Inside, she panicked. Oh no. Did I make him angry? Without turning around, Shira spoke quietly. As you can see, I'm busy. It certainly seems that way. He paused before continuing. I can't ask the servants how to make my daughter like me. But you are my wife, at least in name. For a moment, he struggled to find the words. Then he finally faced her. Please. His expression was more vulnerable than she had ever seen. Help me get closer to Nedge. Angelica's eyes nearly popped out of her head. Huh? As she stared at him in disbelief, countless thoughts raced through her mind. During our first meeting, you acted so distant. And now you're asking me to help you become closer to your own daughter? She wanted to yell at him. You've got some nerve. Stop avoiding your daughter and face her properly. But the image of lonely Nedge immediately appeared in her mind. No. Considering Nedge's situation, this needs to be resolved as quickly as possible. Her expression gradually became serious. If their relationship isn't repaired now, it'll already be too late. Whether the future followed the game's story or not, she had to prevent Nedge's tragic ending. According to the game's timeline, Joanna's death had already happened. If everything continued as before, the rebellion would begin a year later. Count Shira would lead the army against the rebels, lose his life in the battle, and after his death, the Knightley mansion and its entire territory would be destroyed. And once that happened, Nej's tragic death would come next. Angelica quietly clenched her fist. I have to stop that rebellion somehow. But how? Her thoughts were interrupted when Lara entered the room carrying a tray. Did you say something? Angelica immediately came back to reality. Nothing, Lara. Thank you for the tea. As she wrapped her hands around the warm teacup, another thought crossed her mind. It's already been 2 weeks since I came to this world. The knowledge I have from the game might become my greatest advantage. If I want to prevent the rebellion in the future, I first need to learn everything I can about this country. And the Knightley territory. Watching Angelica quietly study her papers, Lara smiled. Madam, you really are diligent. Angelica quietly spent her time reading through the books in the mansion's library. Seeing her so focused, Lara couldn't help looking surprised. It's rare to see a noblewoman reading books by herself like this. Many believe reading and writing aren't part of a lady's duties. Angelica blinked in surprise. So even among the nobility, the literacy rate is low. That's completely opposite to my previous world. Fortunately, reading and writing the Aglatian language came naturally to her. Perhaps it was because of all the time she had spent playing magic to love. As she turned another page, she softly read aloud. What does it say? The book explained that the kingdom of Eglantine had been founded 500 years ago as a nation blessed with magic. The people who had made the greatest contributions to its founding received blessings from the spirits, allowing them to wield extraordinary powers beyond ordinary human abilities, such as controlling fire and wind. Those blessed individuals eventually became the kingdom's highest-ranking noble families. None of this was explained in the game. This is actually pretty educational. Stretching her arms, Angelica casually asked. Nej can use wood magic, right? Lara tilted her head. Did I already tell Madame about that? Angelica immediately realized she had slipped. Oops. I need an excuse. With an awkward laugh, she smiled. Oh my, you mentioned it the other day? Although Lara still looked slightly confused, she accepted the explanation. Trying to change the subject, Angelica quickly asked, how much magic can she use? Lara thought for a moment before answering. She can make flowers bloom and revive wilted plants. It's only basic magic. She smiled proudly. Thanks to Nej-sama, our garden hardly needs any maintenance. Angelica tilted her head. What do you mean? Lara explained. The tree spirit is especially fond of Nej-sama. It looks after the garden for her. Everything suddenly clicked. I see. So that's why the garden stays so beautiful even with so few servants. As they continued talking, Lara mentioned something else. All the servants who helped Joanna were dismissed after the poisoning incident. Since then, Shira-sama has refused to hire household servants other than cooks. Even the cooks are constantly watched by guards. Many of them eventually quit because of it. Angelica quietly lowered her eyes. Although Shira always spoke calmly, it was obvious that the tragedy had left a deep scar on him. Marrying someone like me, who was accused of embezzlement. That was an enormous risk. Just how desperate was he? Before she could think any further. Mother! A cheerful voice echoed through the room. Nej happily ran inside and threw herself toward Angelica. Nej! Angelica smiled warmly. You finished today's lessons. You did a great job. As she gently patted Nej's head, the little girl let out a happy laugh. Watching her smile, Angelica's heart completely melted. She's an angel. An actual angel. From that day onward, Angelica continued letting Nej help with simple cooking tasks. Because Nej helped prepare the meals herself, she gradually felt safer eating them. Little by little, she began gaining weight, and the color slowly returned to her face. I hope one day she won't be afraid of food anymore. Just then, Ned shyly tugged on Angelica's sleeve. Mother. What is it? Ned hesitated for a moment before gathering her courage. I want to go out with you. Angelica blinked. Go out? Seeing her reaction, Ned's expression immediately became uneasy. I can't? Angelica hurriedly shook her head. Not at all. At that moment, Angelica had no idea that this simple outing would soon lead her to a long-awaited reunion with someone from the past.